Good evening. Welcome to our study tonight. Before we begin, let me just give you a couple little announcements. One, several of you have voiced your opinion about our buzz that happened, and we're working on that. We're trying to get it squared away. It's some technical difficulty. The other thing is, and I briefly mentioned it a week or so ago, my cancer did come back in my hip, and basically I've been going to MD Anderson to get treatment. I'll be going for treatments about once every 14 days. So consequently, two things. One is this is live tonight, and you'll still get the study. I'm still doing it. I'm still fine. And then I'll also be doing it taped, but it'll still be on a Wednesday night on YouTube next week, every alternate week. But it won't be on Facebook. So when it's live, it'll be Facebook and YouTube. When it's taped, it'll be on just YouTube, and Facebook will push you there. So that'll be every other week. The other thing is, please continue to remember me in prayer. We know that God has this. We're trusting Him. We know the enemy is a liar, and we know that God's a healer. So thank you so much. Let's go right in the news tonight. Let's talk about this one. It's prophecy. The church age is winding down, and the world is running out of time. Time flies, years race, but 2024 has been a stunner in many, many ways. The world is running out of time before the last act of a major drama plays out. So let me highlight some events from this current year so far that really convinces me of this. Number one, Israel is now alone. Not even America is her ally. The U.S. is withholding weapons and intelligence. The International Criminal Court wants to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu for just defending his country. The European Union, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and the International Court of Justice have all denounced the Jewish state just for wanting to wipe out Hamas. Zechariah 12:3 is in play right now. She's isolated and is the world's burdensome stone. Second, the spirit of Antichrist has been loosed on earth. The headquarters appear to be America. We tell the world how to tear apart college campuses, how to corrupt governments should work. We even embarrass banana republics by trying to jail former presidents in a style that the natives in the rainforest couldn't dream of. 3, there are brand new levels of calling good evil and evil good. Hamas is celebrated around the world, while Christians are persecuted as never before. 4, the world as a whole is absolutely leaderless. There is not one global leader to whom the world can look to. Governments everywhere operate like the Keystone Cops. World War III could easily erupt as a result. The world is unsure just who's running the White House. 5, there's a rush to global government, and strangely, unusual power is being given to the corrupt World Health Organization, who could end up being the leader of the world. They met in May and can use another pandemic to unite the world. The stage was set with COVID. They've targeted 2025 as a possible timeline. 6, AI. Artificial intelligence is being refined to rule the world. The goal is that it will be smarter than mankind. And the Antichrist will need this system to run his global kingdom, and I know he'll use it. Even now, Microsoft Copilot AI demands to be worshipped. You heard it right. Technology has gone way too far. The inanimate is godlike. 7, the aberrant is celebrated as normal and should be the world standard. We are watching the homosexual and trans movement be hailed all over the world, and the lovers of biblical values be persecuted and jailed. As predicted, mankind lives for money and power at the expense of everyone else and anyone else. 8, too many churches are majoring in minors and furthering unsound doctrine. There are wolves among the flock. Church members hear about their best life now, and how about being purpose-driven and about attracting seekers to their church. Sin is avoided. Eschatology, which is Bible prophecy, is scoffed at and marginalized. Pulpits are woke. Movements such as the New Apostolic Reformation are ravaging the naive, experience-driven young people and indoctrinating millions of people. The grace gospel is devoid of personal repentance and responsibility for our actions. Megachurch leaders like Robert Morris get away with sexually abusing a 12-year-old girl for 4.5 years over 30 years ago and not coming clean with it. 9, a cashless society is moments away. CBDC is the heart of the beast system, and it's alive. And lastly, the violence of the days of Noah is upon us. Criminal persecutions are soaring. In some areas, by 5,000%. Cities are ravaged by crime. Entire towns are closing down a business district due to theft and lawlessness. And basically, society is on the move relocating to safe cities and states just to lead a more normal life away from the mayhem. It's as though the entire country is the Wild West of the 1800s. I can go on and on. I've been watching the so-called signs of the times for a few decades now. Nothing compares to the last 5 years, in my opinion. Events have been stunning. They've been game-changing. It helps neutralize the bad news. These things are happening because the stage is being set for a closing act of a global drama. A trumpet will soon sound, and the church will escape this scenario to enjoy the wonders of heaven. But every reader will leave someone behind who will have to cope with trial and turmoil. That's why it's so important to share the gospel, and it should be the first order of business when it comes to being about our Father's business. It's one of the reasons why I'm telling you this in the news. Not because I love bad things, but because now's the time to evangelize. Now's the time to share the word. Now's the time to get excited for Christ. Because tomorrow will be too late. Speaking about tomorrow, let's talk about what's happening in Germany. And man, I don't know, but Germany seems to be a red flag all over the history of the 19th and 20th century. German involvement in the Holy Land, this article is, June 21st, 2024. Bible prophecy indicates that a European beast power will have a military presence in the Holy Land at the end of the age. In fact, the Bible prophesies that non-Israelite Gentile nations, you'll hear about Gentiles tonight in our study, will trample Jerusalem just shortly before Christ's return. That's Luke chapter 21. How might a European force become directly involved with Israel and Jerusalem in the future? With America urging Europe to handle more of its own defense needs, Germany has more recently become receptive to embracing new roles, which bears watching. In May of this year, the Arab League put forth the Manama Declaration, proposing that the United Nations lead a military protection and peacekeeping force in Gaza and the Palestinian territories until a two-state solution can be established. A couple of weeks later, Germany's foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, noted, quote, "If an international protection force is now needed to ensure that we finally achieve peace, this is Germany's mission," clearly supporting German involvement in any future UN peacekeeping force in the Palestinian territories. Should such a scenario come to pass, Germany would be better positioned to more easily fulfill key end-time prophecies related to the Holy Land and the biblical beast power that will control Jerusalem and ultimately the Temple Mount. Not only should Bible students watch the Middle East, they should also watch for a larger role for Germany in the Holy Land. Let me remind you that right prior to World War I, Germany was in ascendance, and it started around Germany, and it was extremely anti-Semitic. Prior to World War II, Germany was in ascendance, and it was extremely anti-Semitic. Prior to World War III, Germany right now is one of the strongest nations in Europe. It's one of the iron toes, and it is anti-Semitic. So let me just remind you, these things are not coincidences. These are happening right in front of our eyes every single day. Let me go a little bit more to economy, and I'd love to give you some really good news in economy, but you're facing it. You're seeing the shortages. You're seeing how your money doesn't stretch, and the facts and the headlines witness to that. You won't hear it on the news because the news is so biased. All they care about is telling you about Biden and Trump. It's over and over and over. I get sick of hearing it, but I want to give you the right news, and here it is. America is almost $35 trillion in debt. That means every single American, all 350 million of us, owes $100,000. America is almost $35 trillion in debt. The Biden administration doesn't really care. It just wants to spend more money. Already it's spending so much that it's increasing our debt by $1 trillion every 100 days. And it's not going to end well. Last year we hit a new ugly milestone. Americans must pay $1 trillion per year just for the interest on our debt. If we didn't waste these trillions of dollars in interest, we could actually give $3,000 tax cuts to every man, woman, and child in America to use as they please. No one knows which straw will break the camel's back, but it's coming. In the past, politicians at least talked about our debt problem. President Bill Clinton said, "We've got to deal with this big long-term debt problem or it will deal with us," quote unquote. Barack Obama said, "Not dealing with it is irresponsible." Trump said, "We've got to get rid of the $19 trillion in debt." But not one of them did anything about it. Now they just simply lie about it. Biden said, "We literally cut the federal debt in half." That's absolutely absurd. And right along with he does, which is a lie every single day. When he took office, our debt was 26 trillion. Now it's 35 trillion. After World War I, the German government couldn't afford its reparations payment, so they printed more money. That led to 300% inflation and created anger that set the stage for Adolf Hitler. Similar hyperinflation wrecked the lives in Argentina, Zimbabwe, and most recently, as you remember, Venezuela. People work their whole lives to build savings, and politicians steal it through inflation. Silly people like Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren say we can fix our deficit by taxing the rich. That's ludicrous. They say, pay your fair share, Warren shouts. But rich people already pay a big share, and raising taxes on the rich won't even get us out of the mess we're in right now. First, many wouldn't pay. They'd move abroad or invest abroad or spend even more on tax lawyers to slime around the rules. Even if they didn't, there aren't enough rich people to tax to compensate for what our politicians are spending. If Warren were able to grab all billionaires' wealth, that would only cover about 1/7 of our debt. That's not their taxes, all their wealth. The only solution is to address what causes the debt in the first place: excessive government spending. But our politicians will not do that. They don't even talk about the debt anymore. They are irresponsible cowards. On the same lines, this article came out. Americans are absolutely drowning in debt. Only way out is a systems collapse. She told you about Germany's collapse. Excuse me. I truly wish that that headline was an exaggeration. Unfortunately, for decades, Americans have been extremely irresponsible with their finances. As a result, credit card debt is at an all-time high. Auto loan debt, all-time high. Mortgage debt, all-time high. Corporate debt, all-time high. State and local governments all over the nation continue to get into absurd amounts of debt. And the federal government has piled up a single largest mountain of debt in the history of the world. Our whole society is absolutely drowning in debt at this stage. And the only way out is for our entire system to collapse. On Tuesday, we learned that the total amount of credit debt in the U.S. has now reached a new record high of $1.1 trillion. Credit card balances spiked 154 billion year over year, notching the largest increase since 1990, the New York Fed found. The rise in credit card usage and debt is particularly concerning because interest rates are astronomically high right now. The average credit card annual percentage rate, APR, hit a new record, 21%. If you have an unpaid credit card from 1 month and you have a balance, you're going to pay 21% on whatever you didn't pay. So if you owed $5,000 in debt, which the average American does, current APR levels would mean it would take you about 279 months and $8,124 in interest to pay off the debt, making the minimum payments. It should be illegal to use a credit card that has an interest rate of 21%. But banks are going to keep doing it because our politicians won't stop them. So don't fall into the trap. 70% of American car purchases now have monthly car payments. You ready? The average American monthly car payment is $1,000. Americans are searching give car back on the internet has soared to a record high. Student loan debt, meanwhile, increased 30 billion, while mortgage balances jumped by 126 billion to $12.14 trillion. Overall, U.S. households are now more than $17 trillion in debt. I can't even begin to describe how foolish we've been. The only way to keep the party going is to borrow even more money. We're looking at a downsized America. 3 years ago, even 24 months ago, you could get a mortgage at 4.5%. You're lucky to get one at 8% today. So that means the size of a house you're going to buy is 25% smaller. That's a downsize. You want to borrow for a car? Sorry, that's 8 to 9%. It used to be 5%. So smaller, less expensive cars, that's happening at the same time. But we just can't help ourselves, can we? And so we're going to continue to borrow more and more and more. The same thing is true for our corporations. The national debt, I told you, 35 trillion, constantly going higher. As usual, things are even worse than many of us were originally projecting. Officials are urging banks to work with customers hurt by ongoing deposit delays that have prevented some people from accessing their paychecks and other funds. A number of customers still haven't received their direct deposit paychecks following a, quote, human error that damaged the plumbing of Americans' banking system. The deposit delays are linked to a problem that emerged this past Friday with the automated clearinghouse, ACH, payment system, causing headaches for consumers and employers alike. Was it really a human error that caused this? If someone just hit a wrong button, you'd think that it would be relatively easy to fix. The banks are the beating heart of our economy, and enormous trouble is brewing. We need to keep our eyes on the banks. Without healthy banks, our entire system will go haywire very rapidly. If the flow of credit starts to dry up, so will our standard of living. Unfortunately, a credit crunch has already begun. It's going to have very serious implications for all of us. To make matters worse, let's talk about retirement nightmares. Retired Americans may need to go back to work to survive, this one says. The Social Security program was initiated to help elderly Americans thrive during their retirement years. Americans are finding that their monthly Social Security payments are simply not enough to cover the cost of living as it spirals out of control. 85% of U.S. adults now consider inflation to be one of the most important political issues that we are facing today, and seniors are being hit particularly hard. A different survey was just conducted by Motley Fool, and it discovered 44% of retired Americans, 44%, almost 5 in 10, are thinking of going back to work because they need more money to survive. Needless to say, trying to go back to work in your 70s, 80s, or 90s is not an easy thing to do. Average Social Security payments in 2024 was $1,907. But Americans 65 and older reported that they spent $4,818 a month in 2022. Compared to 3 years ago, the average U.S. household is spending again $1,069 per month just to maintain the same standard of living. So, as we approach the end of this calendar year, we'll want to keep a very close eye on the global financial system. Major banks all over the world are sitting on a gigantic mountains of unrealized losses. If things start going wrong, it won't take much to induce panic. And once panic starts, it won't take much to spark a financial avalanche. We're in far more trouble than most people realize, and the dark clouds on the horizon are getting closer with each passing day. So what do we do, Pastor Mark? I've said this for years. Get out of debt as fast as you possibly can, and stop borrowing on credit if you possibly can. Let's go a little bit further. Talk about war. War drums, imminent conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. We don't realize how close we are to not just a regional war there, but to a world war. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant warned on Wednesday of the potential outbreak of a wider conflict with Hezbollah, as Hezbollah continues to launch rockets and drones and pummel the north part of the Jewish state. Hezbollah's increasing aggression is bringing us to the brink of what could be a wider escalation, he said, one that could have devastating consequences for Lebanon and the entire region. That's from a spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari. Hagari warned that one way or another, we will ensure the safe and secure return of Israelis from their homes in northern Israel. They are refugees right now in northern Israel. I know lots of families that are there, and they're occupying the hotels. They can't even be in their homes because they're being shelled. It's not up for negotiation, he says. Hezbollah and Israel have been escalating cross-border strikes for weeks after rocket attacks caused massive fires in the north of the country. We're talking about the Galilee. Israel last week killed Commander Talib Abdullah, the most senior official killed in the fighting. Hezbollah responded with unprecedented rocket barrages on northern Israel. Israeli Ynet news site reported that an anonymous senior Israeli government official told the news outlet that, quote, if Hezbollah continues to attack Israel, southern Lebanon will look like Gaza. Beirut will not be immune. Hezbollah is attacking Israel communities and military posts along the border on a nearly daily basis since October 8th. Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah threatened an invasion of Israel's Galilee region. On Tuesday, Hezbollah published a video captured by a surveillance UAV of the Haifa port, one of Israel's most important commercial shipping gateways. According to the Lebanese newspaper El Nashra, Hezbollah plans to attack Haifa if Israel expands the fighting, and in the next stage, additional cities, including Tel Aviv. This city has been marked by Hezbollah as a target in the event of an expansion of the war. The drone also scanned military-industrial facility belonging to Rafael, which is the most dangerous thing the video contained for the Israelis. Sources quoted in the newspaper warned Israel that Hezbollah has precision missiles capable of hitting these targets. The footage was evidence for the Israelis that Hezbollah holds a database of strategic Israeli targets, the source warned. The sources cited in El Nashra presented a possible scenario scenario for the first days of the war, during which Haifa and Tel Aviv would be attacked. Let me remind you, there's American battleships in Haifa. If Israel makes a decision to expand the war in the south or launch a major military operation in the south, Hezbollah will respond according to the level of escalation. And the vital area in Haifa will be targeted with conventional missiles. To distract the defense systems, the organization will simultaneously attack targets related to the Iron Dome and David's Sling. So it's very close. And speaking of that, this is something we hear nothing about. And unfortunately, I believe the world is sitting on a knife edge. Let me tell you what this is about. Nuclear arms race intensifies. New reports reveal expanding arsenals. We used to have a nuclear de-escalation. It's not that way anymore. China is expanding its nuclear arsenal more rapidly than any other country on the globe, now possessing 3 times the number of nuclear warheads that India has, according to a report released on Monday. Meanwhile, Pakistan maintains a rough parity with India in terms of the number of nuclear warheads. Russia and the U.S. remain far ahead, of course, of all other countries, together accounting for 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. China's nuclear warheads increased from 410 in January to 500 today. India has 172 nuclear warheads. Pakistan, 170. All 9 nuclear-armed states continue to modernize their arsenals, with several deploying new nuclear-armed or nuclear-capable weapon systems in 2024. The current nuclear stockpiles are as follows. Russia has 4,380 nuclear warheads. Just one of them would do damage to the world. The U.S., 3,708. France, 290. UK, 225. Israel, 90, but Israel doesn't report all of them. They may have 300. North Korea, a rogue nation, 50. Of those, all those that are, I told you, 3,904 are currently deployed on missiles and aircraft. They're around. Around 2,100 of the deployed warheads were kept in a state of highly operational alert on ballistic missiles. And your president has the button to that. That should scare every one of us. Nearly all of these warheads belong to Russia or the U.S. But for the first time ever, China is believed to have some warheads on high operational alert. They had warheads, they didn't have them out and about. Now they do. China is on track to exceed 1,000 warheads by 2030, alongside building a robust arsenal of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. China could potentially match Russia or the United States in the number of ICBMs by the end of the decade. India, Pakistan, North Korea are developing the capability to deploy multiple warheads on ballistic missiles, a capability already possessed by the US, UK, Russia, France, and China. This would enable a rapid potential increase in deployed warheads, as well as the possibility for nuclear-armed countries to threaten the destruction of significantly more targets. Israel's reported 90 nuclear warheads are considered most modest compared to the other nuclear powers, with some speculating that Israel may possess up to 300. 30 of Israel's warheads are intended for delivery by F-16s and F-15 aircraft. The status of Israel's F-15 fleet is uncertain. The United States referred to them in 2019 as capable of nuclear missions. Regarding Israel's ballistic missile capabilities, up to 50 warheads are likely designated for Jericho ballistic missiles. Additionally, Israel has 5 Dolphin-class submarines which carry nuclear warheads. Israel has a nuclear strike capability from land, from sea, and from the air. Along with all that, President Putin said this week he's changing his nuclear position from a secondary retaliatory strike to first strike capabilities. That is a threat to the entire world. Not to mention, Russia's K-561 Kazan nuclear sub has been cruising off the coast of Florida all last week. We are so close. I had a very rational friend who is up on prophecy call me earlier this week to seriously say goodbye to me. He said just in case he wouldn't have a chance if things in the world get out of control. That is pretty scary. He said I called 5 of my best friends and told them if I don't get a chance to say goodbye, I want to do it now. This is not something that we think is never going to happen. This is very, very close. And if you believe Bible prophecy, all you need to do is look at Revelation and see there's some nuclear exchanges in there. All right, let's go a little bit further. And I know you don't want to hear all this. I don't want to tell it to you, but this is the time. This is the time for us to really get shapen up in our commitment to Christ and his gospel. China's space program, designed to defeat the United States. Again, I'm giving you in the news because you won't get it on CNN and ABC and MSNBC, and you won't even get it on Fox anymore. The U.S.-China space race is but one dimension on the ongoing Cold War between the two superpowers. Both America and China are focused right now on scoring space spectaculars to influence the world as to which superpower will inherit the future. Each rival is seeking to be the first one to land a man and a human on Mars. Far more significant than scoring space spectaculars, however, is the question of which nation will achieve military dominance in the domain of near-Earth space. The ambitious nature of China's space program indicates that Beijing's primary objective is to dominate near-Earth space. Central Military Commission of the CCP also uses its space-based systems to maintain strict control of China's military assets. The CCP seemingly intends to employ its space-based assets to win a war with the United States in the Western Pacific, where clashes between the two superpowers are most likely to occur. China's PLA is openly preparing for war. The aggressive nature of China's space program is particularly obvious in its anti-satellite projects. One of China's anti-satellite programs features a maneuverable satellite that can be positioned to within striking distance of U.S. and allied satellites. We have nothing like that. It reveals the mission to degrade or blind collection and transmission of intelligence data by U.S. systems. And you know that if we want to send a rocket strike in Afghanistan, if we wanted to, or in Iraq, we don't do that right there. We do it from Langley in Virginia by drones that hook up the satellites. Take out those satellites and we have no capability to do anything militarily in the world. Another Chinese anti-satellite project features a satellite with a grappling hook designed to capture U.S. satellites as an immediate prelude to war. Beijing is planning to win a war in space as part of its repeated and reported overall objective of replacing the U.S. as the dominant power on Earth. 84% of China's space launches are military in nature, indicating that the CCP may be well determined to emerge as the only remaining superpower. Beijing is now constructing a model of a lunar research station in cooperation with Russia and Venezuela. China is also planning to dispatch a team of astronauts to the moon by 2030. Even the Pentagon muses that China could surpass U.S. capabilities in space. Throughout the next few decades, China will doubtless maximize its efforts to achieve primacy in near-Earth space. Beijing has also rapidly deployed an array of space warfare capabilities, including several types of ground-launched anti-satellite missiles. Anti-satellite, capable of hitting satellites in different orbits. They can take our satellites out. Ground-based lasers that can blind or damage orbiting satellites, and small robotic satellites capable of maneuvering and grabbing orbital satellites. China will most likely attempt to shut down U.S. intelligence collections, our eyes and our ears in the sky, prior to combat operations on Earth. That's the first thing they do if they want to strike America. If the U.S. military doesn't change course, Air Force Lieutenant General S. Clinton Highnote said, in 2021, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose fast. Whew. Religion. The decline of the pulpit. Only 1/3 of pastors have a biblical worldview. Is America a Christian nation? You can't even ask that question anymore. Most of our values and morals have gone so far off the rails, it's no longer considered a valid question. Pantheism has replaced theism as the dominant spiritual belief in America. The philosophy of Nietzsche believes that when it comes to right and wrong, there is no such thing as absolute truth, only personal interpretation. Everyone is doing what's right in their own eyes. We want a king. 1 Samuel was written approximately 3,000 years ago, 1,000 years before Christ. In the time of 1 Samuel chapter 8, leaders came to Samuel and bluntly said, "You're an old man. Because of this, you'll not be able to lead us much longer." Then the Israelites said to Samuel, "Give us a king." God wasn't surprised by the demand for a king. 300 years before the request was made, God foretold that the Israelites one day would ask for a king. Why did the people want a king? Well, God had faithfully led them through Moses and Aaron. The truth behind the request for a king was their rejection of God's way of leadership. That was over 1,000 years ago. Unfortunately, not much has changed. We're seeing it again. There's worldliness in the church. It's not surprising when worldliness affects our culture. But when it happens to be part of the church culture, we're in trouble. Are we any different than the leaders in Samuel's day? Survey by the Cultural Research Center, 37% of Christian evangelical pastors hold a biblical worldview. 3 in 10. As done by Christian universities surveying Christian pastors. 62% hold a hybrid worldview, blending of multiple or different worldview systems. History reveals that the decision was disastrous to have a king, eventually leading to a nation of Israel being divided into two, and ultimately conquered by the Assyrians in the north and the Babylonians in the south. We need some modern-day Samuels. As the world clamors for an earthly king, the church should be a modern-day Samuel and cry out, absolutely no, this is not what you want. The day is coming when the decision of who the king will be is taken away from man. One day, God will place the perfect king, Jesus, on the throne, and he will rule in righteousness. So why does God delay? Why hasn't he interceded by now? Well, the answer is found in 2 Peter chapter 3, when we're told the purpose of God's delay in dealing with evil is because of his grace. He wants to give people more opportunity and time to be saved and have eternal life. God's grace is a gift, but the time will come when his patience will end. Submitting and repenting does not fit a Nietzsche-like environment where man has the final say in acceptable cultural morals and values. 3 of the Gospels clearly describe how the forerunner to Jesus' earthly ministry, John the Baptist, faithfully proclaimed the need for repentance as he cried out, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." We need that right now. The American false god condition is not new. 2018 Pew Research said 1/3 of Americans say that they don't believe in the God of the Bible, but they do believe that there is some higher power or spiritual force in the universe. That's not going to get you anywhere. As in the days of Samuel, man wants a king. One will permit their selfish desires while at the same time promoting self-absorbent lifestyles. Fully rejecting the kingdom of God, the day is coming when God will say, enough is enough. I, for one, am very, very ready. Let me give you this last one. It's actually a part of good news, believe it or not. We're about 5 to 10 years behind Europe's trends and their culture. Just listen to this. Europe's shift to the right. As predicted, the European parliamentary elections witnessed many ultra-liberals losing their positions and being replaced by more conservative leaders. After 5 years during which Brussels made the Green Deal its signature use and issue, voters turned against ecologically minded parties and voted these representatives out of Parliament. Oh, it should happen here. It seems voters also turned the parliamentary election into a referendum on their own national leaders. While Italy's far-right Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni maintained strong support, leaders in Spain and Germany, ultra-conservatives, lost support. Ultra-liberals. French President Emmanuel Macron's party was expected to lose seats but lost much more than anticipated, moving him to call for a snap election in the next few months. He has now done so from a position of weakness. Once powerful liberal European leaders are floundering and they risk being dismissed. Conservatives now make up the second largest bloc in the European Parliament. Their sheer numbers will move European politics to the right. The destabilizing effects of this election on national European governments could topple several leaders now in high levels of power. Leaders from France, Spain, and even Germany. All ultra-left liberals. It's backfiring. Again, America's 5 to 10 years behind what happens in Europe. Let's hope it happens here much sooner.